here we go. Welcome, everyone. I'm so glad to see so many smiling people in the room. Hello. I am excited. We are back for another Happy at Home live scrapbook chat. Welcome. I'm so happy that you're here. Just checking in. Yeah, did everybody get the chance to enjoy something about the weekend? I did, and we drove off in our big RV for the weekend. We parked in my brother's backyard. Like it was so that we could socially distance around a fire outside. And yeah, I felt guilty the whole time because it's like, I'm not supposed to be going anywhere, but yeah, we parked in his backyard. So that was something that we did. There's my confession. And I was also able to build a gate for my chicken enclosure because that is my whole new world. I have these chickens and we built a gate for the enclosure and I built a little screen door for the enclosure. Well, we've started building the screen door for the enclosure. So yeah, I have been having a great time with my chickens. Yay! Joyce says hello to Alice and also to her lovely daughter. Kathy is here as well. Yay! Kathy says, I watched you all day on Saturday. Well, that is so sweet. I'm so glad I got to spend that time with you, Kathy. Between the live event that we had, Scrapbook Live, super fun, and replays, I'm assuming we got to spend the day together, so that is super nice. So you might be wondering, okay, Alice, what is the big topic of the day? Well, today we are going to be talking about something that I personally think is a magical part of scrapbooking. And no, it's not glitter. It's not just glitter and shiny things. I love sparkle, actually. That's probably one of my favorite embellishments is to stick on a page is some sparkle. I love to tell stories, and we've talked about this a little bit, but I have some other inspiration to talk about storytelling, journaling, and documenting connections on your pages. So I'd love to know, hands up in the comments, say me, or something. If you have listened to Stacy Julian's podcast, it's called Just Enough Time. If you're like newbie to podcast, you're like, I don't even listen to any podcasts yet, Alice. Or maybe you're like one of those people that's like, yeah, I love her podcast, can't get enough. I'm interested to know because some of today's tips are going to come from Stacy, and she has been one of my scrapbook superheroes for so long. She's absolutely amazing. Thank you, guys. I'm seeing some thumbs up. That's like such a nice way to start our session today. Appreciate it. Look at you guys. Everybody's finding out that they're like actually fairly close to other scrapbookers in the comments. Vicky's 2 hours from Sheila, and Dion is like neighbors with someone pretty much. Like, this is so fun. Yay. I love that we can come together online not knowing that there are scrappy people just around the corner from us, which is awesome. So that's wonderful. Marcia says, I love her podcast. Her energy is so bright, cheerful, and positive. She is just the best. And says, no, I don't know this, but I would love to. So it's called Just Enough Time. It has a fabulously wonderful graphic. There is a red clock on a kind of teal colored background. It is lovely. And Stacy Julian has been around the scrapbooking world for quite some time. At one time, she ran the Simple Scrapper magazine. Is that correct? If I got that wrong, somebody please correct me. Simple Scrapbooking magazine. She loved to make scrapbooking simple so that people could just do it, because there is like messy, fun, creative, very embellished scrapbooking, and then there's like a whole nother way to scrapbook, and none of them are wrong, but she wanted people to feel that scrapbooking was approachable, and so that was the kind of the whole idea behind Simple Scrapbooking magazine. Yeah. Oh. Yes, I like Stacy too. She's a scrappy legend. Absolutely. She is a scrappy legend. And I just think that her perspective in the scrapbooking world is so valuable because she really wants people to get to the heart of why you're creating. And she wants you to be able to tell better stories if that's something that you'd like to do. And Laura says, I've never listened to her podcast, but I will add it to my list. Hello, Lynn. So I was listening to her episode called Documenting Connections, and I'm like, that might be... So even if you've never listened to her before, you can skip to it. I think it was maybe episode 31, possibly. But even if it's your first one, go straight to that one. You're going to love where you're starting. You're going to be like, oh, this is what Alice is talking about, but Stacy explained it better, so that's totally fine too. And I think that these ideas are just too good. She has a partnership now with Close to My Heart, and some of these ideas are part of her storytelling book collection. So it's like ideas to get you telling your stories, but she talked about it in her podcast, and we're going to talk about it a little bit today. And hopefully you'll go subscribe, listen to her podcast because it's so good. Yeah. Katrina, one of my favorite scrappy people. And April says she is awesome. I've been privileged to see her speak in person twice, and every time I see her somewhere, I come away with something good. Yes, I met her once in Calgary. She came to the big crop event that I went to every year, and her tips kind of really helped put me on a different path in scrapbooking. We managed to make a little mini album with the photos and get everything into the book other than the journaling in an hour and a half or 2 hours or something. Like, it was crazy. Like, I'm talking about like 40 plus photos and some embellishments on the pages, and it was just like done. And she used a method. She used a system to get us there, but it kind of gave me a very big eye-opening, it gave me a big eye-opener into what was possible in scrapbooking. This actually happened way before I did my first load event, and so it kind of even predated that, but it was like, oh, I didn't even know you could get that much done. Oh, this is a really good way to put a book together. Geez, this is really cohesive. Geez, I really like the way we did this. Okay, I'm freaking out because we had to cut photos without knowing the full plan. That stressed me out, but I really liked the whole overall plan. Patricia says, hi, Alice. Well, hello, Patricia. Katrina says, I met her at CKU years ago, took her class, and it was awesome. Yeah, it was amazing. Just if you've had the chance, and if you haven't, then diving into her the podcast is a perfect way to have your introduction to Stacy Julian and all the goodness that is her. So her podcast, Just Enough Time, I'm pretty sure it's episode 31. It's called Documenting Connections. And this is one of my very, very favorite things in scrapbooking. And it was about finding stories that relate to other parts of life and being able to tell those stories. And she gave a good example talking about, a wishbone with her kids and how that was something from her childhood. And she had a few good examples, but I really like the idea of connections, and it's been one of my best tips for years. In fact, one of my blog posts on my old blog, which is still out there, it's called Scrapbook Wonderland, Alice in Wonderland, kind of fun, right? Anyways, documenting connections, scrapbooking connections was my thing. And I, Stacy Julian, Julian. Okay, so on this blog, I shared a page and I'm going to show it to you right now. Let's bring this up. So this is the page that I had in the blog post, and it was all about documenting connections because I had this photo of my kids out on the skidoo with my dad. And you can't bring a Skidoo out. I can't smell the scent of Skidoo exhaust without, thinking about my dad. He's like tied to that so tight. Yes. And I was able to find a picture of me and my little brother on a Skidoo with my dad, which was a total bonus because I didn't even know if there was something like that. But I went looking and I found this. And so I was able to bring these two pictures together. This one I think was maybe around 1984. This one 2006. So that's a bit of a time spread. But I included parts of the story about my kids, and I included parts of the story about my own story as well. So here I actually asked my kids what they liked about it. And my older son Joe said, I like hanging out with Grandpa because we always have a really great time. I'm like, that's just cute. And Ryan said, skidooing with Grandpa is really fun. I like going up a hill and jumping at the top. And so that's just like really fun memories. And I look at both of those little quotes and I'm like, oh yeah, that's my childhood. So I'm going to just read you the journaling from here. It says, sledding, or skidooing as we called it when I was a kid, was always a favorite thing to do in the winter. And around here, we get a lot of winter. We all bundle up and head out into the brisk winter air. Soon the smell of Skidoo exhaust would be filling our noses as we joyously laughed. That is so funny. I didn't actually pre-read this. I have the gist of what it says, and yet I've already mentioned the exhaust. So, sorry, laughing. And we giggled over the bumps and hills in the backfield. My dad was the primary Skidoo driver. He spent hours with us kids, driving back and forth and around until it was finally time to stop for food, fuel, or to warm up frozen little fingers. Watching my boys have the same experiences and seeing the excitement shining in their eyes as they recount their own stories about skidooing with Grandpa is a beautiful thing. And I think if I could encapsulate the idea of this page and make every single page that I ever create just like this one, I would have created the perfect method of scrapbooking. That's my personal feeling. I feel very much that page is exactly what I'm trying to do with scrapbooking. I want to tell my kids' stories. I want to tell my stories. And if I can show that crossover where everything meets in the middle, that is just the best. Yeah. Diane says, I met her in 2005 at a convention in Seattle. Her stories are awesome. Yes, Stacy Julian. Fabulous. So one of Stacy's, she had 5 little phrases that she was using in this Documenting Connections series. And she uses these to help bring out some sort of connection story. So the first one she talked about was a little known fact. So you can start it off as a page. It could be a title. It could be the first sentence on your journaling. You don't even have to use it. It could just be the inspiration behind the page. But using that phrase, little known fact, leads you to tell a really good story about some kind of connection. And it gives you that chance to explore, to connect your experiences to the experience of another one. So it could be something like this, where your kids are going skidooing, little known fact, we did this well before my kids, or something like that. Danelle says, the stories are my favorite part of scrapbooking. They're my favorite part of going back into a scrapbook, and yet they're the hardest part, I think, to capture. I don't know. Tell me in the comments, please let me know. Journaling, easy or super hard? Or somewhere in the middle. That's totally fine too. You can be anywhere on that whole spectrum of from, yeah, journaling is easy to, oh my gosh, journaling is so hard. Anywhere in there, you can give it a rating if you want. Just tell me, where is journaling for you? Easy, medium, hard. How do you like your eggs today? Everything's about chicken, sorry. But yeah, I love your journaling style, much like mine actually. Journaling is very therapeutic for me. Ooh, that is so good. I love it. And when I tell stories and make pages that are like this, that have this good journaling, I always know that I struck it out of the park and I really got a winner. Deidre says, so hard. I relate. Coming up with this kind of thing is not super easy. Danielle, ridiculously hard. Kathy, hard. Joyce, some are easy, others are hard to impossible. Love to journal, not hard for me. I always journal. Oh, I'm so happy. I'm so glad there's people here that have that experience because that is not my experience. Christy says it's not hard anymore. Sharon says journaling is hard. Dion says journaling, full spectrum depending on the story and the day. Lisa, very hard. Kathy says it's hard. Katrina says it depends. Sometimes I know exactly what to say. Sometimes it's hard. I know, teacher. She's like, little ticks, little ticks. Not as hard since I started viewing pages as telling memory stories. And April says, hard if a scrapbook page is in front of me. Easy if I grab journaling from a blog post or a Facebook post. So those are super good tips, April. Like if you have that journaling somewhere already created and you just grab that to stick onto a page, oh, that's a great tip for us to use. Lynn says it's super hard. And sometimes it's nice to add poems or relevant quotes. Terry says it's the getting started and then it flows. And that's what these phrases of Stacy's are all about. It's about getting you started so that that story finds a way to come out. And I think that that's what I loved it. So little known fact is a really good story starter. Another one that's kind of related to that. Did you know? It just gives you a chance to share this tiny little bit of trivia. And I have like the funniest page. It's in one of my 2 books. I have 2 books out here. And they're both taking you back into stories from my childhood. I'm going to move a couple things around here. And we will have a look at this one. Because this one here is super fun in the fact that, did you know, is the story starter. When she said this, I was like, oh, I have the perfect page for that. So here we go. And the page is called, do you know what? Because my little brother, this is Russell, when he was little, he didn't say, do you know what? He said, do you know what? He like jammed it all together. Like there wasn't enough time to use actual words. Let's cram it all together and say, do you know what? Do you know what? And one time my husband actually, because Russell was 8 years younger than me. So when Jonas and I were together, he, when we were newly together, I should say, we still are together. He turned to him and said to Russell, how do you spell that? And his response was Juno. He's like trying to spell Juno. We're just laughing, right? That's like super hilarious. I look at that. To me, that is the funnest story ever. Katrina says, I never have trouble talking. I often realize that what I tell people about a layout is what should be my journaling. 100%. Super good tip. If you struggle with journaling, show somebody your picture. Because when you show them your picture, you tell them all the good stuff that you can't just see in the picture. You don't just tell them the who, what, when, where. You really get into the why. You get into the story behind the scenes, the thing that, maybe inspired you to take the picture. And I think that that's a really, really good tip. Diane says, I don't think my earlier scrapbooking was about the story, but about the art project. There is nothing wrong with that. The only part is when you regret it. Like I look at my old pages and I regret not adding more journaling. And so for me, that makes me even more focused now about doing a better job with my storytelling. Like, I don't feel bad about what I didn't do. I wish I had done a better job, absolutely. But I know that needs to motivate the pages that I make now. And I can still make pages that are fun, that don't have big, deep stories. It's not like everything has to be that way. I'm not willing to take on that kind of pressure. But I love having little stories like this. And April's like, so cute. Aw. I've done this with the things that my kids have said, and it's so cute. Yeah, and so it can be other kinds of trivia. One of Stacy's examples was maybe you're doing a prom page or a grad page for your kid or, grandkid or somebody, and you put in did you know that I got my dress here and it only cost this many dollars? It can be something little where you kind of just slip these little bits of that family story into these other stories. I think that's so powerful. April says, once I submit a layout or share it online, then I finally know what my title should have been. I need that separation of seeing it online to see how to fine tune it. And how many times, have I done it where I've loaded up a page into our load gallery, and then instead of just putting the journaling as my description, I type something else and I'm like, oh, that should have been on my page. That should have been on my page. Marcia says, when my second son was a senior, I was going through photos to make a scrapbook for him. I kept seeing connections between the things he was doing as an 18-year-old and the things he did as a little kid. Yeah, so that is just so perfect. So when I put the book together, each of the 2-page spreads was a then and now layout. You are giving away my best secret. It is literally my last tip that I was going to close with, but we're going there now because that's what happens when we're all crowdsourcing all of these wonderful ideas. My favorite pages, now and then pages, right? This is what it's like now. That's what it's like then. And it was kind of like where I was starting and where I was going to close up all of this, but totally throw that out because it's just too good to wait. Yeah. And then and now, current activities and characteristics. Yeah. And it's funny because you see the changes, but you can also see the similarities. Oh, so good. Yeah. You can always go back and add to your story. Done that. Totally have done that. It's so good. Okay, so little known fact, did you know, where you can share a little bit of trivia or extra? Another story starter for documenting is remember when. And that can be a good way to observe and celebrate change or an improvement. Marcia says, oh, sure, you don't know the outline. It's totally fine. This is very loose plans when I come into these because as we explore down a certain path, we find out other things and we head in different directions. So remember when, celebrate change and improvement. So it could be oh, I have the perfect page for this. Okay. I need to pull, I think it's in this one of his books. If it's not, it's in his older book. Oh, it might be in his older book. So, oh yeah, it's definitely in his older book. Darn it. I have a page that shows my son having a total meltdown on we played a board game. And he just lost it. And he's crying and it's tears and it's dramatic. And it's that's not how you play a game. This is very unsportsmanlike. And I have these pictures. And then later on, the one day we're playing games and I realized he doesn't do that anymore. And I think it was just such a good realization that he'd grown out of that time. And so I created a page that showed that change. I wonder if it's handy in his other book. Oh, yeah, it's right there. I'm going to grab it. Because I just think it's so perfect for demonstrating this. Oh my gosh. We're going back now, guys. And oh, if I can't find it, that'll be a little sad. Although I have seen other examples that kind of fit into this. Yeah. I don't see it. It's like a not always happy page. Okay, but another example. Here we go. Here is my son playing video games. And in this, you can see the faces. Sure, he can try to be happy for a moment, but so much of the time that he spent playing video games was really unhappy. And we actually really curtailed the amount of video games that he was allowed to play. Even like Mario and stuff. Like we didn't have any kind of scary kind of video games on the list here. But he absolutely loved it. I said Ryan's absolute favorite thing to do is to play video games. He's only allowed to play them on weekends, Saturday only, because he becomes so obsessed with them. His whole life revolves around video games. He plays Lego Pikmin. So it's like when he plays with Lego, he plays a video game version of it, Lego, or Lego Mario. And all he talks is about video games. Hey mom, did you know that Bowser... Hey mom. But video games do not always make Ryan happy. They're also his biggest source of frustration and can make him very upset. And it really depends on how well the game is going. Ryan reminds me of my brother Russell very often. They both have similar ways of integrating themselves into every situation. And when they're happy, everyone knows it. So that's not the exact story that I was going for, because the one page that I made really shows the change in time. But it's still a good example of how this works when it's like a remember when, showing change and improvement. Here's like I think this one's super funny here. So he's my cheeky little elf. My mom was doing photos for the town with all the people for their light up night, and my son snuck in the background. And when he saw this, he looked at it and he says, well, at least somebody was happy. Like, yeah, your boys are blessed to have a scrappy mama face. Yeah, funny kids. No. Now I'm like super curious. I've pulled out all kinds of pages, but I don't think I've pulled that one out. So now I'm like wondering where on earth it might have gone to. So it happens. They just end up in different places. But I like being able to pull them out and look at everything. So I think that's a big thing for me. Yeah, so the next thing was remember when, where you're observing, celebrating changes and improvements. It's also the chance to look back and I think reflect on the people in your life. I've got this page here. And it has my husband's grandmother with my husband. And on this page, it says my favorite grandson, because she used those words all the time, right? So it's like I'm combining this quote that she said with the story kind of behind it. And I said, Grandma, your presence is missed in our life. One thing that always made me smile was hearing you call Jonas your favorite grandson. He would pop over and help out with some small task, changing a light bulb or setting up your computer, and you would be sure to mention, Jonas, you're my favorite grandson. And he'd reply, I know, with a knowing smile, as he'd overheard you saying the same thing to his brothers. Even though you said the same thing to others, I knew that when you said it to Jonas, it was true. So it's kind of like a little cheeky, kind of a little fun, but I love being able to have that memory of that remember when, and to be able to share that. Daniela says, I have wondered how I could make my albums searchable, like take pictures of my layout and add tags or so. I think maybe that might be something that our DigiGals might be a little ahead of the curve with. If we have people that are really good at that and really know or have a good solution to that, I would love to hear it, because that's not something that I am totally on top of. I do have my layouts kind of organized by theme once the layouts hit the albums, and that becomes part of the problem. And based on these 2 books that I have of my son, like, they're not exactly sorted by age. Usually it was like from this age to this age, but there's a little bit of crossover happening there. So I think that as I was getting them into the book, I was just more concerned of putting all of his pages together in one spot. So I think that was a fun one. So it's not the perfect solution. I'm definitely not here to be like, do everything like I do, because I'm so perfect. I'm like, I've got a few fun tips. Let's see if this helps. Danielle says, that was so sweet, Alice. It made me tear up. My grandma did the same thing. Oh, isn't that like total grandma thing? I'm like, I want to be that grandma. Okay, it doesn't have to be right now, boys, but coming up, you got a couple years, but coming up, let's have those babies. And I think like that remember when, it gives you that time to kind of think about it. And I think looking at things that you loved as a child or didn't love as a child can be a really kind of fun thing to be like, remember when I was in San Diego with our ScrapHappy reunion, I ended up going down to Balboa Park, and there happened to be a penny squishing machine. And I was always obsessed with these. If I got to squish a penny, that was like a really great thing. And this was me documenting that as a grown-up, and how even as a kid, that was like so special to me. And like you can see even on my face, because I share the little after face there, I'm just like, oh, look, I got it. So I was pretty happy about that. And yeah, I just think that's a really fun kind of page. And like you can see, not always do these connection stories have to be like tons of journaling. And I think it's a good thing, and I was really glad I pulled this one, because it doesn't have to be so overwhelming. Yeah, I do that everywhere we go. Ephemera, baby. Yeah, and I actually included it on the page, and I'm like, oh, good, I got somewhere good to stick this now. April says, here's a organization. One of my keywords in my photo organization is my pages or something like that, but I'm not good about photographing paper layouts. The best time I'm good about photographing my paper layouts is during load, because I have to upload them every day during the month. So every layout gets a picture. And so that becomes a thing that I do. Other than that, but I wish I tagged them better, because I think that would be so good. If I do have an album on my phone where I keep layouts. So I do go through and I add all my layouts into the one album. And so that becomes a really good idea. Kathy's, it's also a reminder of where you were, right? You only get that penny at that place. So it's kind of fun. And then, for your information is the next phrase category that Stacy had, is for your information. So it can be about words, it can be about traditions. I think maybe this is the part where she shared the wishbone story, where she actually had gone to the library and looked up the story of what the whole wishing with a wishbone thing was all about, so she could tell the story. And I have created this page here about my mother. Just like my mother. And it's a little cheeky here. And I thought it was really fun. Hold on a second. We squished a penny at Niagara Falls and my little boy cried. He thought the machine was broken. He was used to getting gum. That's hilarious. Ultimately, Kathy says she's a lapel pin collector. I cut the shanks off the back and use them in scrapbooks. Oh, I've totally done that. Some of them, like, you can just yank them back and forth and the pin comes off. And some of them, you gotta chop those babies off of there. Depends on how they're put together. Yeah, super funny. Yeah, and it's like, have you scrapped like that story? That's too funny. So this one here is a picture of me and my mom. We're up in the mountains. I don't actually get a lot of pictures with my mom. It's something, I think she's often behind the camera. She's nervous about being in front of the camera sometimes. And we don't always think to do it. I actually have a lot more pictures with me and my dad together. But I probably spend way more time with my mom, which is like really kind of funny. But my mom hates moths. And I mean like hates moths. But I had to go and talk to her to get the story about it. So this was me. For your information, it's kind of getting that story behind this, right? So it's that little bit of family trivia, family history. My mom hates moths. I mean, really hates them. I've heard a story. I don't know if it's true, but that when she was young, some friends put some moths down her shirt. Ew. Can you just imagine them fluttering? Gross. I almost can't even read this because it like creeps me out so much just reading it. They fly so random. I said, I also hate moths. They fly so random, but then they always seem to fly right at me. Like, I'm not kidding. I tell my husband they're attacking me. Maybe I shine brightly. See, I always got to bring a little bit of the goofy in there. Maybe I shine brightly. I guess I'm just like my mother. Clever title. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, she hasn't made that page yet, but she's going to do it. April says, I took a Project Life Digi class from Jessica Sprague, mainly because I wanted to learn her process of how she saves layouts and that kind of thing, but I need to review it. Melody says, the only thing I post on Instagram are my layouts, so it's my record of them. Yeah, and I think having like a place that you can quickly go and look at your layouts, that's kind of a fun thing. So yes, this page, and it had moths on the paper, and actually I looked at the paper, I'm like, ew, what am I going to do with that? I got that in a kit, and I'm like, I'm never going to use moth paper. But then the story about the moths, I'm like, that is a good story. And you'll notice there is not a moth in this picture. It's raining. There's not even a moth in the background of this picture. We are wearing our raincoats for a reason. But I like the picture, and it's a picture of me and my mom. So it doesn't have to be. It's a great example of it doesn't have to be in that moment to tell the story about that moment. So I think that's kind of fun too. And let's see. So for your information, and then she has her final story starter. It was like the bonus one, right? So little known fact. Did you know? Share. Guess what? Remember when? And for your information. And then she had a bonus one, and it was the truth about. And it's like your chance to set the record straight. So I could include a line on that page because I actually got a hold of my mom after I made the page and said, well, tell me the story. And like, I was right. And like, they were evil. They put moths down her shirt, like several of them. So I'm like, yeah, that's pretty horrible. Yeah. The paper is perfect. Yeah, it was perfect paper. And Danielle says, and that is why we hoard paper. The perfect paper for the story. I could have used any paper, but the paper actually inspired me to tell the story. Yeah. To the 5. I must have missed something here. Chrissy says, my fear of moths comes from my dad being in his workshop at night and one flying into his ear. Oh, you can imagine the craziness that followed. Ew. Yeah. Oh, so gross. Okay. Moving on to something I find way less gross than moths. Frogs. Frogs. And I didn't have any frogs on this page. That is almost a scrapbooking fail. I'm sure I have something about frogs somewhere in my collection of stuff, but we're going to forgive myself and we'll move on. So this one is funny because, you know, it kind of tells one of those family stories about the family, and it kind of is a little bit about the truth about, right? So you see us here, the boys are all frogging, they're having a great time, but I tricked them into going frogging. So it says, I wouldn't say that I tricked the boys into going frogging, but I kind of did. Ryan and Ethan were resistant to go, even though Colin was very excited. Luckily, once I announced that I was going, the boys decided it would be okay for them to go too, right? Teenage boys don't want to do, that's not cool, you know, go, I don't want to hang out with my little cousin, that's not cool, but, oh, the grown-ups are going, I guess we can go. Ryan pulled his shoes off and waded right in, and Colin followed right behind him. They had a lot of fun, and they caught 3 frogs. And so it's kind of like that behind the scenes truth behind this. Like, you could just look at this and say, oh, the boys had so much fun frogging, but I had to trick them to get them there. And I think that that's like definitely part of the story that needed to be shared. So I think that's kind of fun. And yeah, and then I like to do the now and then stories. This one is not so much a now and then, but it does share a story from the past. So I think that it counts because it was like a new photo. Yes, I went skiing kind of thing. But I shared an old story. So I used the opportunity to share an old story from a time that I didn't have pictures. And this will be my final little spot for the day. It says, yes, I can ski. I don't like to go too fast. My boys were both better and faster than me by the end of their 3rd day of skiing, but I enjoy it. My first time skiing was a rather interesting event, and I have an embarrassing story. My first time skiing was on a school trip to Marmot Basin in Jasper. I was in high school, grade 10, I think. At the hill, everyone had to take a free ski lesson. I was fine with that, as it was my first time ever on downhill skis. Yes, I will definitely recap the list, Jan. My instructor taught me some of the basics: snow plowing, turning, stopping, and then it was time to take the chairlift up the hill. I was pretty nervous about riding the chairlift. Luckily, I rode up the hill with the instructor. As we admired the amazing mountain views, she explained how to get off the chairlift. Point your skis up, stand up, and slide down the little hill. At this point, I was massively relieved. My only experience with a ski lift was from watching some dumb ski movie where the people jumped off of the lift into the powdery snow below. I actually thought we had to jump. How crazy is that? I still got on the lift. And what was I thinking? These are the things we do in our youth. Every time I go to the hill, I'm reminded of that first ride on the chairlift, and I'm still relieved that I don't have to jump off of it. So I just look at that. To me, it cracks me up because I'm like, what was I thinking? That is just the craziest thing. So hopefully something that we talked about today, maybe one of Stacy's little story starters, will help you document a connection in your life. And hopefully one of my examples will help you like spark how to bring that together. I did have a good one to finish actually with. And I have a bonus tip of my own. So before we wrap up hers, I'm going to do one more. The ski story is hilarious. Why would I even get on the lift if I thought I had to jump off at the end and I was worried about that? Like, yeah. Okay, so here's another one. Come on, focus. Okay, so it says, I'm so glad there are more little monkeys climbing the walls. So this is my niece. That actually doesn't look very clear. This is my niece, and she was climbing the walls, and I thought that was super funny, but it reminded me so much of my childhood. And so I said that. As my niece Sybil scampered up the wall like a monkey, I had a flashback to my childhood. Rhonda, Douglas, and I loved climbing the walls. Auntie Iris would pick a fresh kohlrabi from the garden and chop it up. As we devoured it, we convinced ourselves that we were monkeys. I don't know why a monkey would love kohlrabi, but we were kids. And so it just gave me the chance to tell the story about myself as a child, eating the kohlrabi, and also, share this funny moment of watching her climb the walls. And so it's really a now and then without having both sets of photos, right? And then, so we'll go through Stacy's list, and then I will share my final bonus one that I can add to the list here too. So, documenting connections, go and catch Stacy's podcast. Seriously, it's a delight. She is wonderful. She is so fun. It is Just Enough Time podcast. This was, I think, episode 31, documenting connections. So her first one was Little Known Fact, to help you connect your experience to someone else's. Did You Know allows you to share a little trivia. Guess What gives you I did something similar, and here's that story. Remember When, observe or celebrate change and improvement. And For Your Information, sharing about words or traditions. And then The Truth About was the bonus one, and it's giving you the chance to set the record straight. So my version of this is a now and then page. Those are my absolute favorite to make. And I have another little starter that I think is the perfect way to kind of dig into these as well. And I'll put all of these below in the comments below. So if you're catching the replay or you're like, what was that one? Or I want to write down this list. It's all going to be listed in the replay underneath this. And as you're checking out the replay, you could just give me that little thumbs up. I would appreciate that. Don't forget to subscribe. There, I threw it in there. I always forget. Okay, so my final tip, and this is the final layout that I will share today, for real this time, is this one. And I think this is such a good story starter for something, is seriously miss this. And for me, it was no schedules. When we homeschooled, we could do whatever we wanted, whenever we wanted. And it was a life without schedules. Homeschooling taught us that learning happens all of the time. And this was my jumbled calendar that I made. And I really think that when you're thinking about things that you miss from the past, or you see something in the present that reminds you of something from the past that you missed, this becomes a really great story starter. So yeah, I really think that's a fun one. Something about you miss. You seriously miss this. It doesn't have to be serious. It could just be like, miss this. But that would be my final bonus tip for things that will help you document connections. So hopefully this is good. Katrina says, I'm so used to catching the replay that I was looking for the list. She's already looking there. I will put it up right after. The replays are up instantly. So as soon as they're over, I go and I edit all of the stuff so that I make sure that I can actually add in all the things that I promise. So I love that. Great prompt. Yeah, so hopefully this was really fun. Thank you so much for joining me today. I have the best time with you. And I just love looking back at the things that have really helped me with my scrapbooking or the things that I want to explore with my scrapbooking. And I think that's super good. So thank you for joining me. If you want to connect with me on Instagram, first time! I finally got it right. I'm at Alice Bull on Instagram. And if you are interested in our upcoming load challenge, because it is coming up soon, then let's see here. Oh, where is that little thing? If I go to this one here. Oh, no, it's not in there. Okay. I thought it was in there and it's not. So all these different little scenes. Isn't that fun? So the load challenge will be coming up. The registration, we're just finalizing some stuff with the tech guy. So it's not open yet. I know, it should be. It's not. But everything is getting ready in the background. So it's all going to be running on time and it'll be awesome. So thank you so much for that. Hopefully you'll be interested. If you are, get signed up on my email list. And that is here. ScrapHappy.org. Subscribe. We're going to be scrapbooking the whole month of May inspired by the Beatles. So fun. If you... let's see. If you would like to connect more, that Instagram, that's a great way to get a hold of me. And if you have a page where you're like, Alice, I did the best journaling because I did this, tag me on there, like on that Instagram, and I'd love to know about it. Gail says, great tips and layout examples. Thank you. Katrina says, thanks for this. I cannot believe I didn't know about Stacy's podcast. I know, if nothing else today, if I gave you nothing else, I gave you the info about Just Enough Time podcast with Stacy Julian. It's not just scrapbooking, but it's really around the world of scrapbooking. And so kind of tips toes into the outer parts of it. Yeah, the Beatles. I know, it's going to be a good one. I'm so excited about Load 520. It's coming up. If you're on my email list, you'll get the info and probably a little incentive, like a little coupon or something. Patricia says, thank you for the awesome layouts and ideas, Alice. Yeah, if I inspire you to like tell better stories on your page or connect with your stories in another way, then check mark, I did my job, right? Like that's exactly what I want. Lynn says, this has been so much fun. Okay, as a final little before we run, if you want to see the results, some people weren't at the Scrapbook Live on the weekend. I have the results from our stencils from the other day. So I just wanted to show you it really quick. So this will be my last little bit, so this was this really cool Vicky Bouton texture paste iridescent glitter. That was this stuff here. And I had used that Twisted Sunburst stencil from Catherine Pooler. So that was that. And look at how pretty it is. That's going to make like a beautiful card. And then I had the wonderful recommendation that on a bit of colored jewel tone paper that would be beautiful. Yeah, great suggestion. Thank you. And then I had pulled it out and I did it on the black. That is amazing. Like seriously, this looks so fabulous. I'm like, ooh. So that was fun. And then I also played with this stencil that let me do like the leaves, and I used the Liquitex flexible modeling paste that was in the gel medium stuff. So flexible modeling paste, that was what I used, and I made the little leaves. And then we started mucking around a little. So we used the texture paste, and then I used the distress crayons, and check those out. And it kind of just like watercolored a little bit of softness over the top of it. So fun. Melody says, I have that paste and I love it. Yeah, well, if you have that other stuff, like this stuff, use it on some black or jewel tone colored papers. Fabulous. Then I did the texture paste, and then we sprayed a little bit of mist over top. And oh, is that not beautiful? Seriously. I don't know if they have that paste at scrapbook.com. They might. I haven't looked, but that is my affiliate link if you care to use it. Thank you, thank you. It is in the comments underneath the video, or will be. So thank you. The bit.ly/scrappy shop. I liked that one so much, I actually did another one. So those turned out fabulous. And then there was lots of color sitting on some of the texture on the actual stencil. And I did one. And so this one kind of looks different because it looks kind of creamy compared to this one, which looks a little speckly. But I like both of the effects. Like especially this one looks a little, this one looks a little softer if you're trying to get like a leafy kind of effect. This one has that more of a mottled kind of look. Oh my gosh, like these just turned out so good. I was going to make a full-on 12 by 12 page, but I kind of messed it up and I wanted to go outside and deal with something. They were doing my chicken fencing, so I had to go take care of chickens. April says I put Alice's link in my address bar so I can always find it. Thank you so much. That is just so sweet. I seriously appreciate it. It doesn't cost you more to use my link. It's just like you click that, it takes you right to scrapbook.com. And if I link specific products underneath, like it'll take you right to those products at scrapbook.com. But when you use my link, I get something back from them, and they have great shipping. They have great, like, everything. So, yeah, lots of good stuff. Katrina says those will be great for cards or layers on journals or junk journals. Oh, I know. Like, I'm doing quite a few cards right now. It's one of the things that is making me happier at home, is making cards. And you can see I've received a few cards from people, so thank you. And I really think that making cards and sending cards right now is just one way I can kind of stay connected and keep in touch with people. So that's been really fun for me, and this will help, and somebody will get a lovely little card in the mail. So it's just another little thing. Anyways, I really should run because I do have to go back and check on my chickens. So thank you so much for joining me today. I will be back tomorrow and we will have a brand new topic. We have a few more days of April, and I'm here every weekday in April. And then on the 30th, we will talk about what will happen next month in May. As load starts, things get happening with that. And then tomorrow I'll probably have a little announcement about what's happening this weekend. So all kinds of good things. So thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate you. And I've just had the best time hanging out. So thank you. Bye, everyone.